we're all just swimming in content these days, aren't we? It feels unavoidable.
Absolutely, it's everywhere.
But I want you to stop and think just for a second about the intellectual cost of all that volume.
Mm-hmm.
If you scroll through social media, you're just constantly hit with this background noise, inspirational sayings that don't really say much.
Right. The platitudes.
Yeah, and like predictable, mediocre jokes. It's kind of exhausting.
It really is.
And it makes finding something genuinely insightful feel less like discovery and more like, well, wading through a dumpster fire of lukewarm takes.
That's a good way to put it. It's the ultimate signal to noise problem, isn't it?
Totally.
When everything's shouting, the really valuable ideas, the resonant ones, they just get drowned out. They don't have that immediate flashy punch.
And they don't really fit into a quick scroll?
Not at all. They demand a bit more.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into the philosophy behind selection. How do you actively, cut through all that superficial stuff to find something that really challenges your mind? Okay.
Our source material for this comes from excerpts about the creation and the structure of this pretty remarkable anthology. It's called Threaded Pearls of Wisdom and Wit, Essential Quotations for Critical Minds.
That title really says a lot. It's practically the blueprint.
Right. So our mission here is kind of twofold. First, we need to unpack the really strict criteria this collection uses to filter out the noise, what it deliberately rejects.
Mm-hmm. What gets left on the cutting room floor.
Exactly. And second, we need to understand its unique structural design. It's quite clever, actually. It turns it from just a reference book into, well, a tool designed specifically to promote critical thinking.
Okay, let's get into it. That filter sounds crucial.
It really is. Let's start there. The editors of this collection, they weren't just aiming for good quotes. They're actually quite aggressive in defining intellectual substance by listing what it isn't.
It's like a statement of principles, almost. And that list of what they exclude, it's fantastic because it hits all the usual suspects, the common forms of intellectual junk.
Like what specifically? Well, they explicitly throw out what they call inspirational platitudes. Think like bumper sticker philosophy.
Stuff that feels good but gives you zero actual insight.
Exactly. Warm feelings, no substance. They also ditch anything they consider a mediocre joke. Because real wit, genuine wit, is actually pretty rare and demanding.
Okay, that makes sense. But you mentioned something else they exclude, something about nonsense. That sounds important, especially for critical thinkers.
Yes, that's maybe the most defining exclusion. Discernible nonsense. And this isn't just about, say, factual errors. It seems to go a bit deeper.
Deeper how? What counts as nonsense when we're talking about quotes or ideas?
Well, based on the source, it seems to target stuff that just lacks intellectual structure. Discernible nonsense appears to cover two main things. One is logical fallacy.
Okay, broken reasoning.
Right, the argument just doesn't hold up. Or, maybe more commonly, it's what you might call sentimental fluff. Statements that are so subjective, so vague and touchy-feely.
That they don't really offer any solid grip on reality or truth.
Precisely. It's the kind of content that, if you poke it even slightly with a critical question, it just collapses.
That right there saves the critical listener you a huge amount of time.
Definitely.
If you're trying to learn quickly and deeply, having a filter that just removes the empty calories up front is invaluable.
It's a shortcut past the noise.
Okay, so once the nonsense, the platitudes, the bad jokes are all cleared away, what does it take for a statement to actually make the cut, to be called a real pearl of human thought?
Well, it needs to achieve separation. It has to stand out from the ordinary, the merely obvious.
Right.
And crucially, it must have one of two key qualities, or, even better, both. And those are profound wisdom or sharp wit. That duality of wisdom and wit, that's really the engine driving the whole collection.
Let's pause on that duality for a moment, because that feels like where the real nuance is. We sometimes lump wisdom and wit together, but they do different things for your thinking, right?
Yeah.
How does the collection seem to distinguish them?
That's a great question. Wisdom, in this context, seems to be the enduring truth, often delivered quite soberly. It reflects deep, foundational knowledge about, say, the human condition or how the world works.
Like the steady, deep well of insight.
Exactly. A wisdom quote offers perspective that lasts.
Think of someone like Marcus Aurelius talking about handling adversity. That's wisdom.
Okay, I get that. And wit, how is that different?
Wit is more like intellectual surgery. It's the surprising twist, the inversion of common assumption. It doesn't always give you a final answer,
Right.
but it throws a sharp counterpoint out there that forces you, like instantly, to reconsider what you thought you knew.
Can you give an example, maybe on a specific topic?
Sure, let's take time. A wisdom quote might be about how fleeting it is, carpe diem, that sort of thing.
Classic.
But a wit quote might be Oscar Wilde saying something like, I never put off till tomorrow what I can do the day after.
Oh, okay, yeah.
See, it's disruptive, it's clever, and it totally shifts your perspective on the same topic. It pokes at the earnestness of the wisdom quote. I see. So the editors aren't just looking for cleverness for its own sake. They're seeking a blend. Wisdom gives you the foundation, the solid ground.
Mm-hmm.
And wit provides the necessary, maybe skepticism or just the sharpness to keep that wisdom from becoming too heavy or dogmatic.
Exactly. It's intellectual density, but delivered with, as you said, spice
Mhm.
or sharpness.
It keeps things dynamic.
Precisely.
Mm.
By insisting on this combination, or at least one of these qualities at a high level, the editors are basically pre-screening for thoughts that have real intellectual weight. You're pretty much guaranteed to be engaged.
Okay, this filtering process makes a lot of sense. It sets a high bar. But that leads us perfectly into the next part, because finding the pearls is only half the job, right?
Right. What do you do with them once you have them?
Exactly. The challenge then becomes organization. Just listing them alphabetically doesn't really cut it if your goal is critical thinking. And this is where that title, Threaded Pearls, really comes into play.
Yes, the arrangement is absolutely key. This is what elevates it beyond just a collection. It becomes a tool for critical engagement.
How so?
Because these quotes aren't treated like static museum pieces. They're presented as participants in this ongoing, centuries-long debate. Instead of alphabetical or chronological order, the quotes are arranged into what the source calls quasi-continuous narrative threads.
Narrative threads. So like a story.
Almost. Imagine you look up a topic, let's say, the nature of creativity. You don't just get one famous artist's opinion.
Okay.
Instead, the quotes are literally structured to sort of respond to each other.
Yeah.
They create this dynamic flow that reads almost like a script.
That's a fascinating way to think about it. A script for a play starring historical figures, but they only speak in their most profound lines.
That's a great analogy. And this structure, this choice, it transforms the book from something passive you just referred to into an active instrument you engage with.
So the value isn't just in reading one pearl.
No. It's in seeing how that pearl bumps up against the one before it and how it sets up the one that comes after it. It's the interaction.
Okay, let's make this concrete, because this virtual discussion idea is the core of the structure's power. How do these threads actually work? Let's pick a big topic, maybe something like the search for truth.
Perfect example. The editor's method requires, and this is crucial, including different views on most debatable issues.
Ah, so it's not about finding the answer.
Not at all. A thread on truth wouldn't start by trying to establish one single point. It would likely start by presenting a collision of ideas right away.
Okay, walk me through how that might look. How would wisdom and wit maybe clash, and then how might a counterargument come in?
All right, so you might begin with a piece of foundational wisdom, something asserting the importance of relentless questioning, perhaps Socrates. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing.
Okay, classic. Sets a high bar for humility and seeking truth.
Right, a strong starting point. But for critical engagement, you need disruption almost immediately. So where does the thread go next?
Maybe something witty that pokes at that humility.
Exactly. Next could come the wit, the sharp counterpoint that questions the practical utility of all that humble seeking. Maybe a quote like James Branch Cabell's, "The optimist proclaims that we live in the best of all possible worlds, and the pessimist fears this is true."
Oh, interesting. That doesn't directly refute the Socratic idea, but it uses that dark humor to suggest that finding the ultimate truth might lead to, well, either complacency or dread.
Precisely. It challenges the motivation of the seeker.
Yeah.
Is ignorance bliss, or is truth worth the potential discomfort?
And right there, it forces you, the listener, the reader, to start reconciling these things. The need for humility versus the anxiety of what you might find, it's not passive anymore.
You're mediating the argument.
Yeah.
And then the third quote in the thread might pivot again. It could offer a completely different angle on how truth is found. Maybe something focusing on action over just thinking about it. Perhaps like, it is not enough to stare up the steps. We must step up the stairs.
Ah, so bringing in pragmatism.
Exactly. That piece of wisdom plays right after the disruptive wit, pulls the discussion towards effort, action. implying that maybe truth isn't just found by analysis, but through actually doing something.
That's the core mechanism, isn't it, for really engaging a critical mind.
I think so.
If you only read things that confirm what you already believe, you're just building an echo chamber. Critical thinking needs you to bump up against competing ideas, especially high-quality competing ideas. This framework forces that encounter.
It moves you way beyond just memorizing quotes. You're not just learning what someone important said, you're learning how different powerful ideas clash and interact around a single big question.
And that friction, that's where the real learning happens.
Awesome, yes. Genuine understanding, genuine knowledge acquisition, it often happens right at those friction points between conflicting truths or conflicting insights. It demands that you synthesize, not just absorb.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. This collection, Threaded Pearls of Wisdom and Wit, sounds genuinely unique. It's not just a compilation of great quotes. It's not even just smart observations lined up.
No, it's more design than that.
It seems to be a deliberately curated framework, designed first to filter out the noise, the platitudes.
Get rid of the junk.
Right. And second, to force you, the reader, to actively mediate this virtual discussion of the wise and the witty. And by doing that, it provides a kind of shortcut past all the information overload that swamps us every day.
You could see it as an intellectual training ground, really, just cleverly disguised as an anthology.
Yeah.
It understands that being truly well-informed isn't just about collecting facts. It's about having a flexible mental framework for evaluating and maybe even reconciling contradictory ideas and insights.
It forces you, the reader, the listener, to become a synthesist, not just a passive consumer.
Exactly. You have to do the work of connecting the dots, resolving the tensions.
So, thinking about this whole approach, if the most valuable insights really do come from confronting these different views on most debatable issues, maybe here's something for you, the listener, to take away and think about this week.
Okay.
What's one foundational belief you hold right now? Something you feel really certain about? Maybe something that's never really been properly challenged.
We all have those.
We do. Could you actively seek out a thoughtful, genuinely wise, or maybe even witty counter-argument to it this week? Not to necessarily change your mind, but just to engage with that friction.
An intentional search for intellectual friction.
Yeah, that act itself. Maybe that's where your own real deep dive begins.